Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. I'm Max Chadwick alongside PJ Clark and Tate Sigworth. We broke down the top three quarterbacks. If you haven't seen it already, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. We did scouting reports on all three of them. I'm pretty sure we can all agree those are the top three guys. We all have them in different orders. But now it's time to talk about who's next. Who's the next quarterback after them? So we're naming a ton of candidates here to be QB4 who can maybe even jump one of those three. We'll see. But before we start the video, of course, be sure to follow our Twitter at Boom or Bust Draft and Reddit at Boom or Bust Draft. Now, okay, look, I'm not going to tell you to like the video and subscribe. I'll let you figure out if you like us after you watch the video. However,
Smart.
I'm asking you to comment. So even if you love us, if you hate us, or think we're just okay, please leave a comment below. So as I mentioned before, we all agree on the top three quarterbacks, although our order is all different. PJ, how secure, though, do you think Lawrence, Fields, and Lance are in the top three?
Well, I think it's if they all three of them play football this year and if all three of them come out into next year's draft, I think it's firm. I think it's locked right now. With all the uncertainty going on, I don't know if all of that is a guarantee, which kind of sucks. Yeah. Looking like things are going to get moved to the spring. At that point, if I'm a top prospect to any of these guys, I wouldn't waste my time playing, especially if you're one of those three. The one guy who I think would stay is Trey Lance, which would hurt me deep down personally. I would be really not a fan of that. But if all three come out, those are the first three off the board. None of the guys we're about to talk about have a shot at overtaking them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of these guys that we're going to mention can slide into the third place. There's certainly no one here that we're about to talk about that could go one or two.
Justin Fields could
That's
totally
hilarious. Mr. Wet Noodle, Jabroni, D2 Land, Trey Lance can get out of here. I do think this coming class, these people we're about to talk to, I think after you get out of the top tier of prospects, I think the bottom people are better than this year's bottom people, if that makes any sense. Which is gen good, which, I mean, you know, is nice. I think you're going to see a decent amount of quarterbacks taken potentially on the first day as teams get desperate for a Jordan Love, you know, late 20 franchise quarterback, Hail Mary. But I don't see anyone really that we're going to talk about overtaking the GOAT, Justin Fields, and then Trevor Lawrence and D2 Jabroni Land, Trey Lance.
I love how this video, we're talking about QB4, not even mentioning these guys at all. This has already devolved into Justin Fields versus Trey Lance again. Look, I agree with you guys. I think they're very secure. Obviously, a lot can happen, but I'll be surprised if those guys are in the top three next spring. They're head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of production and tools. However, if we don't play until the spring, which looks more and more likely by the day, guys like Lawrence and Fields, PG, you mentioned it, they might not play. And if Lance's season gets canceled, he might come back to school to try and be QB1 next year, which he has a really good shot at. So if Lance doesn't play, you can maybe see one of these names leapfrog into the top three since there's a recency bias because those guys.
I mean, they'd have to.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also recency bias. So like now you're going to see, okay, this guy who's going to play, maybe even if Lance comes out, they might be recency bias. Like, okay, Lance didn't play at all. These guys did. We haven't seen Lance since 2019. This guy has just played recently. So look, scouts love seeing what have you done recently.
Okay, good. So idiots, let him be done.
Right. I mean, hey, we'll see. But look, it just all depends on what college football looks like. If we don't play at all, lock in these three if Lance comes out, in my opinion. But just keep an eye out in case some players play and some don't. So teams may want a guy who has just played than a guy who hasn't played since 2019. All right, let's talk about some of the candidates for QB4. This one's interesting. We're starting down in Athens in what's likely to be the biggest quarterback battle in the country. Georgia picked up two huge transfers this offseason as they look to replace three-year starter Jake Fromm, or Fraud, as Tate would like to say.
Idiot.
Look, first is Jamie Newman from Wake Forest. Last season, the former three-star recruit completed 61% of his passes, 2,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks, also ran for 574 yards and 6 touchdowns. Heading into this year, many thought he'd be the guy. That was until USC quarterback and former 5-star recruit JT Daniels announced he'd be joining Newman down at Georgia. And as a sophomore, he missed all but one game last year with a torn ACL and meniscus. But as a true freshman, he had a pretty bad year. Only 60% of his passes completed, 2,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, 10 picks. And after getting hurt, true freshman and 2022 named to watch, Keaton Slovis dominated forcing Daniels to transfer. So Daniels got a ticky-tack waiver, maybe. You got cleared to play this season. Tate, how important do you think this quarterback battle is for next year's draft, and what do you see in each of them as prospects?
I mean, I think it's pretty huge. I'm a big Jamie Newman fan. I don't really know how Kirby Dumb has lucked himself into two decent quarterbacks. We don't really know exactly what JT Daniels is going to become. Like Max mentioned, the first, full year we saw of him in college was a little iffy. But at the end of the day, he was the 2017 Gatorade Player of the Year. There's talent there. We just have to find it, I guess. I think Jamie Newman's the better guy. I think he's going to win the quarterback battle, at least hopefully. I think Kirby Dumb could make maybe a smart decision, true to his actual last name, not my made-up last name that I give to Georgia football players and coaches. Jake Fraud and Kirby Dumb for those at home who aren't aware. Yeah. Sorry, I just needed that to just get that across. Because I think at the end of the day, Jamie Newman led Wake to 8-5 record. They were ranked for the first time since 2008. This is Wake Forest we're talking about. This is no football powerhouse. Sorry to dog Wake Forest fans out there. 26 touchdowns plus 6 rushing touchdowns. I think his completion percentage needs a little boost, but if he can do that, I think we could be talking about quarterback 4 and a first-round pick for Jamie Newman. So hopefully Kirby Dumb makes the smart decision.
I think if this season doesn't get played, I'm pretty much like Sharpieing in Jamie Newman as QB4. I think he's good enough right now to just like be where he's the top guy if nobody plays this year. I think a lot of these other guys we're about to talk about have a chance to overtake him, and I expect most of them will. Never been a big Jamie Newman fan, but what he did last year was really, really impressive. You just mentioned it. Led Wake to being ranked at 8-5 record. You don't see that out of them, and it's not like he's playing with huge talent, and I was excited to see him in Georgia. But if I'm Kirby, I'm starting JT Daniels. I'm going with the higher ceiling. I don't care
just
if the lower
screwing
floor.
Jake out of his grad transfer.
In such a screwed up. No, but here's the thing: Jamie's gonna be fine. Jamie does not have to play this year. I'm going balls to the wall, higher ceiling, lower floor. Let's do it. I don't think JT comes out this year at all, unless like maybe he burns the world down. But in terms of this QB competition, give me the best quarterback in the country 3 years ago.
I'm shocked. I think JT Daniels is probably more talented than Jamie Newman, but I think Jamie Newman's way more polished right now. I'm going to give the edge to Newman. I love his touch. There might not be a better quarterback in terms of dropping it in a bucket. He's a great runner as well, so he can open the playbook a little bit. I want to see him hit more than just vertical routes. If you watch him on tape, he's throwing basically all go routes and post routes. I want to see him do more, and George will ask him to do more. And PJ, like you mentioned, Daniels is like a firm 2022 guy. For me, he reached class of 2018. He's a year younger than Justin Fields. He was a number 3 ranked quarterback, 5-star recruit. He called plays at Mater Dei as a sophomore, which is something that Matt Barkley didn't do until he was a senior there. Second ever true freshman to start at USC. He shows flashes, but he also had a really, really rough freshman year. So I think he needs a year to sit behind Jamie Newman, learn the offense, and then take over the next year and maybe be one of the top quarterbacks in the 2022 draft. I think Newman is better for them if they want to win right now, which is really what Georgia wants to do. Okay, so let's move on to another guy, Iowa State quarterback Brock Purdy. Now, this guy, Austin Gale hates hearing this, but I'm going to say it. He's hashtag fun to watch, man. The junior is entering his 3rd year as a starting quarterback for the Cyclones. In 2 years, the former 3-star recruit has completed 66% of his passes for 6,200 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 16 picks, while also running for over 550 yards and 13 touchdowns. PJ, what do you think about this kid?
I mean, Iowa State's a really good team. Iowa State's got a really good coach, Matt Campbell. I've wanted the Jets to hire now twice. Yep. I would like to see Matt Campbell get an NFL opportunity, and I would like to see Matt Campbell stick with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a really, really good quarterback, and I was not in on him until I started really going into the tape for this video. But the more I watch him, he's fun to watch. That's exactly what you said. That is how I would describe him. And listen, 3-year starters, start as a true freshman. That's something that I care about. I put stock into that. If you're good enough to start at a really good football program like Iowa State, a Power 5, and under a really good NFL potential coach like Matt Campbell as a true freshman, I'm going to put some weight on that. So I think Brock Purdy, I would like to see him maybe throw a little bit more this year. He played games last year, but only had 475 attempts, which is kind of on the low end. If they open up the playbook a little more, give him some more opportunities just to get more tape on him. What? What?
Oh,
what?
Wow. Is this PJ Clark talking about a quarterback not throwing enough? Who does that remind me of?
Yeah, but he doesn't run
I think it's
1,200
it's
yards.
Trey Lance. Right.
He
D2
doesn't
jabroni
run
wet noodles.
for 1,200 yards. Hey, all right, fine.
I forgot.
If Brock Purdy wants to run for 1,200 yards, we're fine. He doesn't have to throw the ball anymore. So I got.
Brock Purdy doesn't throw the ball enough. I wonder what that makes Trey Lance. I really like Brock Purdy. I think if we do have college football this year, I think he's the quarterback that is most probable to overtake Jamie Newman as QB4. He's probably at his best when he's on the move, but he can also just tear you up from a clean pocket, which is kind of terrifying. I think the one thing that he really needs to improve, though, if he wants to jump Jamie Newman and really talk about first-round talent, is his arm strength. I think his arm strength's a little questionable. But if he can bump that up and put in another good year, I mean, we could be looking at a first-round pick here.
Yeah. Look, I mean, one of the biggest questions for almost every top quarterback nowadays is how much their supporting cast elevate them. You could talk about it with Tua Tagovailoa this past year, Trevor Lawrence this year, Justin Fields at Ohio State right now. That's a real question for them because they got superstars in almost every position on offense. For Purdy, he's more elevating Iowa State because, PJ, I love Matt Campbell, but their team is straight up bad around him right now. And he is still leading them to 7 wins. This kid elevates his supporting cast, which is really what great quarterbacks do. You saw Russell Wilson elevating the Seahawks to a divisional round when they should have been picking top 10 if they didn't have Russell Wilson. Tate, you mentioned his arm strength, his size isn't great, but he's a gunslinger, man. He escapes pressure really well, finds open receivers. He was awesome 2 years ago as a true freshman. If it wasn't for the best true freshman quarterback ever happening in the same year, like in Trevor Lawrence, people would talk about Brock Purdy a lot more. I'm a big fan of him. If he can get back to his true freshman form, which is when I thought he was best, he can be really, really good. All right. Next up is former Stanford quarterback KJ Costello, who announced this offseason he's joining Mike Leach down at Mississippi State. In his 3 years at the Cardinal, the former 4-star recruit completed 63% of his passes for nearly 6,200 yards, 49 touchdowns, and 18 picks. Tate, what do you think about KJ Costello?
I mean, I think this is the guy in this class where I have just eye emoji on KJ Costello. I think he's a very interesting prospect. His accuracy has kind of been up and downs throughout the year. He had 1 year where he was 58%, and another year where he went up to 65%. He's coming into Mike Leach's system. He had some injuries last year, a head injury and a thumb injury that kind of plagued him, made him miss most of the year. So we don't know really exactly what we're going to get from him this year. But I think the ceiling for him is quite high.
All my chips are in the middle of the table for KJ Costello. They're just all there. This is the guy I'm willing to bet on out of this entire video.
Wow.
And he's already shown me that he can make good decisions. Because if I'm a quarterback who just wants to go and throw the ball willy-nilly and get tape on me out there, especially getting hurt last year, go follow Mike Leach wherever he's going because you're going to throw the ball 50 times a game. And I think Stark Vegas is going to be very, very happy to have KJ Costello. I think he's going to kind of take advantage of a sort of what I expect to be a kind of down SEC, especially with all the crazy stuff going on. And he's the oldest guy on this list. He's a grad transfer already. He's a big dude. He's 6'5". Yep. He's got the QB size. And his 2018 was really, really something special the last time he was healthy. I think he's got the highest ceiling out of anybody here.
Yeah, he's really interesting to watch. He's leaving the Pac-12 to go to the SEC, and he's playing in a completely different scheme as well. So Stanford, if you really look at them, they throw a lot. They try to find best matchups one-on-one, and they throw a lot of contested balls. Mike Leach's offense is all about finding space. So I'm interested in seeing if KJ can read a defense more instead of just throwing it up to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside a couple years ago. Look, this is probably the most arm talent Mike Leach has had under center in a long time. Anthony Gordon and Gardner Minshew aren't winning any long ball contests, probably like myself, but KJ Costello, man, he's got a legit arm. I'm interested in seeing if Mike Leach can change up his offense more now that he has a guy with legit arm strength. I still have some questions about his accuracy, but KJ Costello, with that arm talent and Mike Leach's system, if he kills it, man, certainly a guy to watch out for QB4, maybe even a first-round pick. Let's move on to someone who kind of came out of nowhere last year. That's Minnesota junior quarterback Tanner Morgan. Last season, the former three-star recruit completed 66% of his passes for nearly 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 7 picks, leading the Golden Gophers to an 11-2 record, their most wins in a season since 1904. PJ, are you a big Tanner Morgan guy?
No.
Why?
No, I'm not.
Why?
No, I'm not. I don't get like. I don't get any of it. And I know friend of the podcast, Noah Searson, is going to get really, really mad at me. But Minnesota last year, I don't understand how they did what they did. And if you want to throw it back to some of our older content, if you're a longtime listener, things we can't talk about. But I didn't get the Tyler Johnson thing either. And I definitely don't get the Tanner Morgan thing.
Boo.
I mean, he's
like Rashad Bateman at least?
Yeah,
Rashad Bateman's a stud.
Rashad Bateman is really good. He's not Tyler Johnson. And Tanner Morgan, I don't like. Should Tanner Morgan even be discussed over Sam Ehlinger in this video?
Oh my God!
Are we sure?
I was thinking about putting Sam Ehlinger in. Come on, man.
No, Tanner Morgan's like a good college quarterback, I guess.
And
guy can throw a slant. Like, that's all I got. I have no professional expectations for Tanner Morgan whatsoever.
Yeah, on my bad list for Tanner Morgan, I wrote not great at anything. So Minnesota fans on Twitter, I really hate to do it to him, but he's nothing special. He's a fine college quarterback.
If you wanted a quarterback, you should have kept Trey Lance in state.
That's true. Maybe then he'd throw the ball a lot more. We'll see. Or we would see. I don't know. Tanner Morgan, I mean, he really came on, honestly, when he just throttled Penn State. Sorry to do it to you, Max.
Yeah. Well, he did.
Versus Penn State in 2019, he went 18 of 20 for 339 yards and 3 touchdowns, which,
I mean,
have a day, kid.
Quarterback in the whole year. He was dominant.
Have a freaking day. But yeah, he's not great at anything, like PJ said. I don't really think he's going to have – I don't have any professional expectations for Mr. Morgan.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, I'll play devil's.
Go ahead and disagree.
I'll play devil's advocate here. I like him enough. I think he's a bit of a sleeper. He was awesome last year, man. Like, he was fantastic. That Penn State game broke my freaking heart, but he was awesome in that game. It's the opposite of Brock Purdy. I am a little bit worried about how much the receiving corps elevated him, because Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman might have been the best duo in the country last year. That's even including Alabama with Judy and Ruggs. Dude, Rashad Bateman, as college receivers, not, of course, the NFL prospects, way better in Alabama, but as college receivers, Johnson and Bateman were dominant at Minnesota.
I'm taking Chase and Jefferson in that fight 10 times out of 10.
Oh, you know what? You're probably right. Okay, never mind. Number 2. Minnesota's number 2 behind LSU. Completely forgot about LSU. He doesn't have really good arm talent. You guys mentioned that before. He won't be fitting the balls into tight windows at all. But what I do like, he throws with anticipation really well. He throws off platform really well. His arm is good enough. Look, you saw Gardner Minshew have success with that kind of arm. Tanner Morgan can maybe have success with that kind of arm. I don't see him really being the QB4 of this draft, but I think he's definitely a name to watch out for. Not like Sam Ehlinger, who I think just doesn't have any future in the NFL, unfortunately for Longhorn fans. Okay, now this guy has an arm. Florida quarterback Kyle Trask, junior this year, first year starting, completed 67% of his passes for 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 7 picks. Tate, what do you think about Kyle Trask?
Kyle Trask could be the guy that stands to gain the most if we play. I know I talked about Brock Purdy could really benefit as well. But Kyle Trask kind of came on this year. He had these 2017 and 2018 kind of nulled from injuries. So we didn't really see him play at all. He finally beat out Felipe Franks after Franks went down with an injury. By the way, Felipe Franks, bum.
Yeah,
kind of a negative.
Kind of a negative that you couldn't beat up Felipe Franks, man.
Yeah. It's it's kind of terrifying. But at the end of the day, he had a very nice last year. 67% of his passes completed, 25 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. He's got good timing, good accuracy, good pro size. I really like him. I don't think he's QB4. Maybe we could be looking at 5 or 6. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really know how many of these guys are going to go on day one. He could maybe sneak in there. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
This is the guy who I think has the most to lose if we don't play football this year, which I guess is kind of what Tate said, because he has not been a starting quarterback heading into a season since his freshman year of high school. Went to the same high school as De'Ara King, who overtook him immediately.
Who is also as good as Trey Lance. Remember that. Remember that.
Yes. Remember that, folks. De'Ara King is as good as Trey Lance is. De'Ara King overtook him in high school immediately, and then he spent 3 years as the backup at Florida. This guy finally has his shot, and it's going to be rudely ripped from him. I was not a Kyle Trask fan last year. I was not a Kyle Trask fan watching Van Jefferson tape for the 2020 NFL Draft. I'm kind of in now, though, because reading up on how he was able to still be a 3-star as a backup to De'Ara King, got a Florida offer out of it, and then waited out bum Felipe Franks for 3 years and really capitalized on the opportunity. And what stands out to me is the guy's first start in 7 years was at LSU, and me, being the smart gambling man that I am, jumped on that LSU line immediately. At LSU, this kid's going to be terrible, right? No, he led that game in the third quarter. He was really, really good in that game and gave LSU a run for their money. One of the closest games they had last year. He is a big boy. He is 6'5", 240, got this Roethlisberger-type vibe. I'm in. If we play, I want to see what he can do.
I did not know that he didn't start so he's a JV quarterback, basically.
Yeah,
his almost entire – that's insane. Oh, my God. I got to find out what high school that is. PJ, you just mentioned it. He's a man. I mean, he's 6'5", 240. He's got a howitzer of an arm attached to him. What's weird for me, though, is that you watch him on tape. He doesn't really throw the ball down the field that much. And you're like, dude, like, why aren't you taking these many shots? Maybe it was because, he's a first-year starter, didn't want to lose his job again, but he didn't want to take many chances. I'm really, if we play this year, which I really hope we do, I want to see him take chances down the field now that he's the confirmed starter for Florida. And also he's a bit of a statue in the pocket too. He's not really going to move around that much because he's huge. He's 6'5", 240. All right, let's stay in the SEC. This guy right here is going to be a pretty divisive quarterback for a lot of people. Probably not divisive on this. Not divisive on this show, though. I know a lot of people love him. Texas A&M quarterback Kellen Mond, 3-year starter, former 4-star recruit, completed 58% of his passes for nearly 7,400 yards, 52 touchdowns, and 24 picks in his career. He also has run for 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns. PJ, you love this kid, right? He's a QB4?
Yeah, this guy stinks. Kellen Mond stinks. I don't feel bad about any of this at all. He is lethargic is the number one word that I have written down. This guy moves like he's in a sand pit. He is not quick at anything. He's not fast. He doesn't throw the ball particularly hard. His reads are slow as hell. This guy is like molasses, and I can't stand to watch him anymore. He does nothing like efficiently, and Jimbo got like all the money in the world to go coach that team. So like, what does he care? But like, this guy's awful. And he's like literally just a shotgun quarterback. Again, like, why is he better than Sam Ehlinger? They're all the same guy. I don't get like he's good at nothing and he's slow at everything. So why do I want him?
Tate, what do you think?
I mean, I don't really have that much more to add on. I am in agreement that Kellen Mond is not a good quarterback. If your college average completion percentage works out to 57%,
bad, real bad,
folks, that's gen horrible. That is horrible. Freaking Josh Allen was like 56%. Okay, that's how bad we're talking here. Josh Allen, throw a 5-yard out. Kellen Mond's accuracy, size, he doesn't really perform in big-time games, which, I mean, he's at Texas A&M. He's playing big opponents, but he doesn't really perform. You look at his completion percentage in big-time games versus big-time opponents, and it's like 52%, 53%. And you're like, oh, my God, I want to throw up in my mouth. I'll play a little bit devil's advocate to PJ. He is molasses, but at the same time, he has poise as a result of that. It's just sometimes he gets into trouble because of his molasses poise mix. But yeah, I don't know. Kellen Mond's not good. I feel like he's been in college for 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's like the Perry Ellis of college football, really. Yeah, like he's
go away.
PJ, you're gonna hate this because he just signed a deal with the Jets today, but he's a James Morgan for me in this draft, man. Whereas like I hear the hype, and I'm like, okay, let me watch this kid.
People are talking, yeah,
and I watch it all like, what are we talking about here? Look, he works with Jimbo Fisher, who's one of the best quarterback whisperers in the country. He made Christian
underrated.
Yeah,
underrated.
Christian Ponder's a first-round pick. EJ Manuel was a first-round pick. Jameis Winston went number 1 overall.
Whoa. Legally cited quarterback, Jameis Winston.
Fair. No, fair. I'm just saying he makes quarterbacks
and
good.
Jimbo took blind Jameis to be the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. And look, Kellen Mond has never really improved much. He's a tools guy. I think he's got actually pretty good tools. But if Jimbo can't unlock those tools, can anyone? So he hasn't been good in that offense. That's an NFL-type offense, too. Like, that's what you're going to see in the NFL. He's just not up to snuff in terms of accuracy. He locks onto his first read almost too much. He just stares down his receiver. So I don't love Kellen Mond. I think he's got tools. If he puts it together in his last year, maybe. But I don't see the hype around him to even be close to QB4. All right, so we mentioned almost everybody for QB4. PJ, you mentioned Sam Ehlinger. He wasn't in the rundown. But real quick, do you have anything?
I don't even want to talk about him either.
You don't?
If you make the declaration as a true freshman that Texas is back and then you suck for 2 consecutive years, I'm out.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't put him in. I think he's a college quarterback. I think he's like a good college quarterback. That's about it.
Which is fine. We need those.
Yeah, no, we do need those. There's 130 teams out there. Not including North Dakota State too. Okay, so we mentioned everyone.
D2 jabronis.
We mentioned everyone that are probably going to be the candidates you'll hear for QB4. Tate, who is your QB4 as we stand right now?
I mentioned it earlier. For me right now, it's Jamie Newman. He's QB4 for me. I think Brock Purdy can jump him. And if Kyle Trask goes on some crazy tear, if we have football this year, then maybe even he could jump him. And I will come to the fence of Sam Ehlinger just a little. At the end of the day, he's had back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons. First year as a full starter, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, then 32 and 10, 65% completion percentage. He's not as bad as these two fellas here are making him out to be.
I like Sam Ehlinger.
Great college quarterback too. I don't see the NFL. I don't see the NFL.
He's not going to play in the NFL. Not all guys have to play in the NFL.
He could be a career backup, but we could be looking at a Chase Daniel type player here, depending. Okay, but it's Jamie Newman QB4 for now. Sam Ehlinger, not that bad, but yeah, okay. PJ.
I just want to say we didn't mention Tommy DeVito in this video either, and I think maybe we should have done that.
Here
Anybody?
we go.
No.
Look at the shirt. Look at the shirt. You talk about Tate bias. Look at the shirt PJ has on right now.
No. Okay. So no Tommy DeVito talk. Tommy's not my QB4. It's going to be KJ Costello. I'm calling my shot right now. I think if we play, he's going to throw the hell out of the ball down there. I think Mississippi State's going to be better than a lot of people think. Mike Leach isn't letting that team suck. And right now, if we don't play football, Jamie's coming off the best season out of any of these guys. But I take Costello's 2018 over any single season that any of these guys have.
Yeah.
So I'm betting on that.
I agree with you, PJ. I think if we don't play college football, which looks more and more likely by the day, Newman's the guy. It seems like for QB4, teams probably more comfortable with him. I think the two that you mentioned right there and the one I'm about to mention, I think these are the 3 guys that could be the QB4 candidates. It's Brock Purdy for me, but I think Costello and Newman are right there too. Like this is a really tight race for QB4. But for me, for Purdy, I love that he elevates his talent around him.
I just want to step in here.
Sure.
I said something really, really dumb before. I said he didn't throw the ball enough. And that is just completely wrong because I looked it up. He led the Big 12 in pass attempts. I just saw the number and it didn't look right. So I just want to like call myself out.
They throw the ball 80 times a game there.
I just want to call myself out for being an idiot. Let's hand up that one something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Brock Purdy passed enough, but
again, I would like it to be noted that PJ thought it was a concern that he doesn't throw the ball. It was a concern that PJ voiced at one time.
Run for 1,200 yards, Tate.
What was I Brock Purdy.
You're talking about Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I was getting PTSD from our Trey Lance and Justin Fields video, which, by the way, check out right above us. But yeah, Russell Wilson elevates his team. Drew Brees elevates his team. Tom Brady elevates his team around him. Brock Purdy elevates his team as well. I like the guy a lot. He's so good under pressure and he escapes really well. Love that in him. So, but honestly, Costello and Newman, man, they were right there as well. I had a really tough time picking QB4. All right, that'll do it for another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. If you liked the video, please now hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, comment who your QB4 is right now, or maybe do you think one of these guys actually is above Lawrence, Fields, or Lance and in that top 3 conversation?
Justin Fields, undraftable. That's it.
That is PJ's take.
Wow, you heard it here first. Justin Fields is UDFA.
We're just going to cut that part now. We're just going to clip that, and even though we know you're joking, we're just going to keep tweeting it out saying, wow, look at this take from PJ. Okay, so follow our Twitter because we are going to put some clips at Boom or Bust Draft. We're only a few away from 300 followers now. Also, follow our Reddit at Boom or Bust Draft Show. So for PJ Clark and for Tate Sigworth, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.